Blast beat, D beat, skank, blast.
Powerviolence, hardcore punk's feral cousin, kicks down the door and takes all your cereal before you can even call the cops. Is what you would say if you actually trust the cops. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. We're gonna do a deep dive and create a genre that's near and dear to my heart. Even though I barely know anything about it, and if it wasn't for my friends, I would not know what the fuck I was doing. And I still don't know what I'm doing. Let's make Powerviolence. Okay, if you know me, you know me. I'm a metalhead, or at least metalcore kind of guy. But the reason why I decided to do Powerviolence is because, again, metalcore, hardcore punk. That's where the core comes from, metalcore. And hearing that, I decided, let me go to a punk show. After hearing Femme Kitty talk about it, I decided, okay, let me find it when it's possible. And then, you know what happened, lockdown. But I met a couple friends. My friend Care Bear was like, hey, you want to go to a punk show? My house got burned down, so let's go to a punk show because it's for me and my family and we need the funds. Because we want to support her, we, pull up at the show and I see this drummer with like this really cool style. She looks dope as hell. And I help her carry her drums in, and then I see her band play. And I actually became friends with the vocalist. I'm gonna call him Pinky Gretzko. And let me describe this show real quick. How to describe this shit? Powerviolence was just dope. It was more emo violence that explained the street vocals. Let's break it down. So, songs, 2 minutes. Bass, insane. Following the guitarist at times, but also leading the melody. Guitar like a knife. Drums, blast beats, single pedal blast beats, just frantic. Singer, screaming on the fucking floor. He knows what I'm talking about. That motherfucker just, I gotta ask, if you watching, how you doing that insane technique and not running out of breath? Yes, I'm talking to you if you're watching. All these details are what make Powerviolence. In their case is more emo violence, which they would say at their own admission. But let's make Powerviolence, or as close as we could possibly get. Alright, first for the drums. Remember how I said it was gonna be like single blast? Well, for what I did, I'm gonna call it challenging blast, because if you do it one blast, if you're using a single pedal, this might be hard, but my drummer's able to pull it off. It might just be a skill issue. I kid, you do whatever you want, but this is how I did it. So listening to that, it's mostly single kick, but the last end, especially with what I showed you, it kind of ends with what feels like a double kick. But that is more or less because I'm showing you a small snippet of it. But the main thing you gotta know with a lot of Powerviolence is that the snare is the center of gravity, especially with the blast beat grooves. And the main blast beats are fast and repetitive, so you gotta keep like that. That's why this is the main beat. But also, don't go too crazy with doing only blast beats. You need a good groove to like center the people, especially if they're not inside the Powerviolence or hardcore punk scene. But for you or just at home, here's how you do it. For the groove parts, mainly put the snare on the 2 and the 4. And for the blast beats, 8th and 16th. They better be rapid fire. But the main thing I want you to take away from this is there are no rules, just guidelines, especially for this genre. That's why I would more or less say for the drums, I'll just put it, I wrote the guitar first and then pretty much built the drums around the guitar. But how I do it is usually drums, bass, and then guitar. I just write the guitar first. So I did this was just kind of clicking to find what matched with the guitar. But here's some advice. Mainly for the snare, start on the ones. Mainly for the snare, start on the 2 and the 4 for, your basic groove stuff, and then the 8th and the 16th for your blast beat. And also remember, it's okay to mess up. Again, I wrote the guitar first and then just went wild with my imagination on programming the drums and making a bunch of fucking mistakes. That's how I got the groove section for this part. And just to let you know, this is just a guideline, not rules. You know I'm a weeb, right? Because of this, I decided to add a part that was inspired by me playing an anime band right before I made this song. And last note, if you're actually playing drums or you're doing this, the pattern goes like this. Blast beat, groove, D beat, skank, blast, stop, slam beat. That's your pattern. You don't have to do it. That's like I said, it's a guideline. If you're thinking you're making a mistake, remember, Most Powerviolence is about playing a skank beat and a D beat and a blast beat of some sort, while using your own creativity to do whatever you want. Why do you think I mentioned that the band that got me into this is Emo Violence? It's not just because I like the people who are in it, but also because it's not to discourage you if you don't sound exactly like everybody else. Now for the bass. Let's be honest, our band doesn't have a guitar player. I mean, we do, but we stuck him behind drums. So we're gonna ride the bass knowing that it's gonna be a guitar later. But here's something that kind of still works for you bass players. Sadly, in a lot of punk and metal, you kind of just copy the guitar player's part on the root and the fifth. Here's the good part though, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Even inside of the band I told you about earlier, the one that's more Emo Violence, the bass player was playing taps, slapping, sweep arpeggios, all of it. So do whatever you want. Just try to stick within the key that the guitar player is playing in. Or who knows, if you're talented enough, write the song yourself and then have the guitar player play something over it. Again, it's not a rule, it's a guideline. I'm gonna keep saying that. Just remember for the meat of the song, it's blast beat, D beat, skank, blast, stop, and then slam, and then probably another blast beat. And remember, just a suggestion. But also another thing that is common is to have either the bass or the guitar start off with the main riff, usually alone with no drums. For this one, we're gonna do a guitar. This isn't the first Powerviolence song I've made. The first one I made pretty much started off with bass, but this one we're gonna start off with guitar. But don't worry, I'm gonna show it with no effects so you can hear the bass. Also, the part where the skank beat comes in, there's a little bit of a break. You could do more groovy shit. This is kind of where I decided to add a little bit of a slap break in here, but it was kind of sloppy, so I redid it like this. Guitar, the instrument vital for any kind of heavy rock music. What kind of fucking nobbin wouldn't use a guitar? Okay, so if it's obvious, we pretty much haven't used a guitar, but even though that's the case for us, that we use a bass for the most part, here's some main things you should use as a guitar player. 1, power chords, usually in an abrupt way. Don't forget tremolo picking. For punk rockers, they really like a lot of black metal tropes. Also, don't forget to add riffs randomly. Here's some advice for your amp setting. Bass, you can do it however you want, but for guitar, it's a shit ton of gain and boosted mids. Also, add as much distortion as your heart desires. Now for the... Alright, for the vocals, main thing you gotta do is this. Mostly false chord for hardcore in general, but when it comes to old-fashioned kind of Powerviolence, the main thing is false chord in a low form. And then for a high form for Emo Violence, I would have to ask my friend Pinka Gretzko for that, but from what I could tell, it's mostly some kind of either glottal compression or fry vocals. While I like my McDonald's french fries, I'm gonna be doing mostly false chord with a little bit of fry. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm coming at this from a metalhead perspective. Like I said, I have a vague idea on how my friend does it, but I won't lie. Hardcore, especially now, uses so many techniques. They usually use false chord, which is what I'm gonna primarily be using. But I'll have to ask my friend about this to see how he does it or what the technical term would be for it. But here's the advice that he's given me over the years. 1, when you're gonna do this, warm up, usually by singing a scale or a song that you know you could do comfortably. And then 2, the main thing is diaphragm support. A little trick that people use is they will say the word hut to activate their diaphragm, but like this, hut, hut. Now, like I said, this isn't a rule, it's a guideline. That's right. But here's the thing though, this will help you prevent vocal damage. So keep this in mind. Well, all that being said, time for the lyrics. Most Powerviolence lyrics are abrupt, angry, frustrated, and coded with social issues. And you don't have to talk about social issues if you don't want to. Don't shy away from talking about what's important. The last Powerviolence show I went to, my friend, she took the mic and said some words that stuck with me. These next couple years are gonna be hard. I won't kid you. Especially for people of the LGBT community. I won't divulge too much of what she said because since the room was mainly filled with people of the LGBT community, she divulged some secrets that helped her survive that I don't want to disclose because I don't feel like putting people in danger. But that's the thing. If it wasn't for her saying that at the show, a lot of trans kids wouldn't know about this message that she told them about. A lot of LGBT people would feel alone. So say what matters, because there are certain people that don't want what matters to be talked about. But also, don't be afraid to talk about internal struggles or make fun punk. Like, that was a big thing about Powerviolence. It wasn't meant to be a scene, at least when it started off. From what I heard, they were just having fun, and people still have fun now. So we have a lot of bands that are talking about systemic problems while talking about societal problems, and then they'll talk about pizza and skateboarding, and that's where we come in. This song is called, well, you'll know what it's called later. I based it off of Tokimitsu from Blue Lock. He got named Captain Panic because he has really bad anxiety to like a crippling level. Something I can relate to because I mainly took this as a Blue Lock character, but I started relating to this as the year went on. It's a mix of sports fun from anime and a bit of anxiety that we've had this year. This year kind of beat me and my drummer Shadow up a little bit, but a lot of good things happen too. But sometimes you get so bad you just wanna yeah. Thank you for listening to Captain Panic. Honestly, making this series has been a dream that I've had for a couple of years now. Somebody really close to me, her name is Olivia, was one of the main reasons why I wanted to make this. She's supposed to be a part of it, but our paths diverged and we weren't able to do it at the time. But I kept the idea going, and because we both decided to name it this, we both came up with a name.
Distortion Lab.
The main objective is to push distortion as an element of sound, while of course seeing how far we can push it. Also add the project I was a part of, Floral District, is no longer a thing anymore, so I made another one. This is where my drummer and I come in. Well, Distortion Lab already has a name for the project. The project that me and my drummer have, that we're putting under Captain Panic, doesn't have a name, so we're giving it to y'all. What's our name gonna be? We're currently going by Log Off at the moment, but should we keep that name, or should we go by these names? Al Media, X Chops, or City Z. Help us out. We need a band name before our first show on the 13th. Until then, help us out. Like, subscribe, see you next time.